So then, our topic of the day, publishers. Are you giving buyers what they need to transact with you? And we have Kevin Arsham from MediaCom, who's also a director on our board and a member of our executive committee. And Kevin has been in the advertising agency business for many, many years, for the last about 6 at MediaCom, prior to that at Assembly, and prior to that at MediaCom and at others. So he's got a long history. He was chair of the 4A's B2B committee a long time ago, and I've known Kevin in this industry for a great period of time. And in the downloads for today, there is a white paper that Kevin has produced on this subject, so I'd encourage you to look at that. Eileen Keller from Ideality, CEO there, she is on our Media Managers Advisory Committee, the MMAC. And I didn't point this out to our speakers, but Eileen is a graduate of the University of Texas in Austin, and so is Kevin, interestingly. A little tidbit I didn't share with our speakers in advance. But Eileen is our Media Managers Advisory Committee, or we call it the Buyers Committee. Each time we look to make change within our organization and reach out to stakeholders, she's been very active on the media managers, where we say, what's the buyer's perspective on something that we're looking to do, or what can we do better for the buyers? And Terrance McDermott, he is on our Digital Officers Advisory Board. And that's a group we put together a few years ago when we launched the co-op in the programmatic and automated buying space. We reached out to put together a tripartite group. So we have advertisers, ad agencies, and media owners that sit and advise totally from a digital perspective. He is at Allison Partners, has been there just under a year. He'll have his anniversary in September. Prior to that, he was at Slack & Company for 10 years in Chicago, and before that, Leapfrog Online. So I thank you for all 3 of you being available to us and to talk to us today. And what I'd like to do is just open up with a general question. Seemingly, this is, I see this, that we've done this many times now with our board and with other committees, to ask you first, how has the pandemic impacted you personally, but then also professionally? And if we start off alphabetically, Kevin Arsham, I'd ask you first. Kevin?
Sure. I'm going to say personally, working from home or professionally has been very productive. As I mentioned, I've been able to convert the travel time to the office as, I will say, additional hours spent on the computer. From a media buying standpoint, needs have certainly changed. We've pushed print copies to be sent to the home or digitized. Been focused on virtual events. Interesting fact, trade seminars done virtually have allowed for break time to include entertainment by top recording artists, really because there's no travel time involved. I was involved with a seminar on account-based marketing, and during the break time, we had Adam Levine from Maroon 5 sing a few songs. So we could definitely see in the future unique ways of, let's say, amplifying virtual seminars. B2B overall, some industries were on high demand, such as trucking, food manufacturing, just to name a few, and questions have been raised. Did the business decision makers in those industries have time to focus and engage with advertising? And also another question is, if we look at other industries, did the BDMs there have time to step back a bit and reevaluate business? And personally, I'm also enjoying having long hair now, being kind of a throwback from the 60s. So.
Very good. And I missed whatever, Eileen, whatever you contributed. So if you, did you cover it all off, or did I cut you off?
I got cut off, but I'd like to contribute. I was waiting patiently for the sound resolution to be. I have been impacted by, personally, I have a lot of my family involved with the pandemic. My nephew is a TSA fellow at Denver Airport. My sister and her husband are FEMA DOD people. They're right front and center. He's been in New Orleans for a long time working with the pandemic. I have, my son is in home health care, does funding for that, and has been trying to figure out how to work with seniors having no place to go. once they survive the virus. So it's been quite a lot to me personally, very impactful. But and a cousin who's a psychiatric nurse who's frontline. So it's been quite a bit to the family. In my professional world, we've had one client totally cancel, one client advertising, just decide, no, we're not going to advertise, which is so silly. But I told them, if you do nothing else, just talk to your existing customers. Good luck. Bye. Another client wanted to cut everything in half for the rest of the year. So we had to go in and renegotiate contracts and take everything down by half as much, and then try to get value added so that we could basically have the same presence for response. That was hard. And then another client decided that they needed to change all their messaging. And they let me stay where I was because we created these informational oasis platforms for them for the political year. And we had these great little pods that they could live in, but they wanted to change their messaging. So more money was made. So it's been bad and good, but I've come out of it feeling pretty hopeful that this is an opportunity for us to reform and gracefully have a reformation in how we do business. And so I'm excited.
Cool. And then Terrance, I didn't hear, so I don't know. Did you finish or what did I do there?
I did not. I did not even start. So I'll say personally, because I have 2 high schoolers at home, I've been enjoying seeing how they spend their days. They don't need a whole lot from me anymore these days, and it is fun to be able to see as I'm working away what they're doing. I would say professionally, I miss my colleagues in the office. It was always good to be able to share small talk in the break room, right? All those things that even when we reopen may have a different flavor. I agree with Kevin. I am working more hours and probably being more productive. And what we're also hearing from clients is when physical events, in-person events are being canceled, they're looking for ideas for how they can replace the reason they went to those physical events. In some cases, it's maintain a relationship. In some cases, it's badge scans for leads. We're working with them hard to make sure they understand how digital techniques can replace what may have been canceled for the remainder of the year.
Very good. Thank you. All right. So if we move on to our questions, Kevin, could you give us just a brief glimpse, a short summary, as to how you actually put the media plan together? And then the sort of a tag-along follow-up to that is, do you build your own models for data retention or do you use something off the shelf? So please.
Sure. Well, I won't be able to give all the ingredients away, but in short, it all starts with a media brief. And as a planner, it's very important to be flexible and to add some standardization to our process. But we look for key goals. We look for messaging, a definition of the audience by job titles and industries, and how prospects are engaging with the client's site or content. This leads to finding and creating unique ways to drive more traffic to the site, drive demand, make a sale, nurture a lead, and address targeted industry issues and solutions. Keep in mind, there are over 200 industries reached by multiple media outlets, and that includes, trusted websites and publications. So keeping tabs on this industry media is key. At the same time, using auditing and tracking methods for comparing sites by its content and unique audiences per month to determine partnerships. Part of the planning is also determining how much to go horizontal versus vertical. And what I mean by that is if we are going after plant engineers as an example, do we look at media that will give us the entire spectrum across all goods and services? Or can we combine it with the extra push in a particular industry, such as food manufacturing or automotive? Once we have in place a consideration list of possible media partners, we started looking for ways to use content or underwrite columns or features to own the story and tackle industry pain points and be in front of the conversation. RFPs generally get circulated outlining multiple touch points and unique ways to win on a customer partnership level and on a sales level. Planning also involves intuition from experience. Chances are we've been in one of several industries before, and we know what sticks or which publishers have become a household name. The key is to study and know the industry and the buyer's industry. There are also many strategic levels to our plans for a full funnel or well-rounded approach. Industry media is a big part of it because you have journalists working 24/7 to report on the industries we target, and it's a full-bodied industry content environment. Account-based marketing is another level to our planning and has in fact been very useful in reaching newer or unique job titles in areas such as procurement and sustainability. And those are roles that may not be easily identified just yet on a subscription card. So thank you for that question. It's one of my favorites. And it changes, obviously it changes all the time because we need to be flexible.
Right, and so this follow-up there that, you're building your own models for data retention or to use something off the shelf. So what tools do you have in shop?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. We find, obviously, the Kantar products are very useful. And it's a combination of looking at SRDS, looking at audit statements. There's a new site out there now that's starting to compare digital sites by unique audiences, so we can use that as a measurement. We also work with publishers to gather as many of the most recent studies that they have done on their subscribers or on their users to their website, and you combine all that together to build a media plan. And for me, it's like building a media plan is like working in a lab. You really look at so many different variables and testing things and before you start setting things on paper.
All right. And we've agreed, we'd ask our panelists if they had anything on each of these points to chime in. So Eileen or Terrance, anything you'd want to add to that? Eileen?
We also subscribe to Media Audit International Demographics, and we look at Scarborough. We look before we create we call it a media blueprint. Before we do that and go into the planning phase, we take a look at use of media by our demographic. So once we have a good hold on who our people are, what their NAICS number or all the different details about them, we might try to pull up using resources that are there industry-wide, or if there's surveys about what kind of media is being used. But we decide what kind of media is being used based on research. So we take a look at that and create our dimensionality that way.
All right. And Terrance?
Kevin, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just going to say we've also built, internally proprietary tools that are based on surveys that have been conducted in different segments that help as well. So I meant to add that. Yeah, I think most agencies do that. I think what's to win is how unique those proprietary tools are and how connected they are through different systems. The more connected, the more I think we win both at the and agency level.
Right.
Great. I will simply add, Glenn, that I usually like to take both a top-down and a bottom-up approach. Ideally, when the results of both approaches are very similar, we know we're on to things. As Kevin said, what do I need to do horizontally? What can I do vertically? That's how I want to figure it out. And then where am I looking for impressions? Where am I looking for site visits that might get engagement? Am I looking for leads at varying points in this? So I'll sketch that out top down, And then once some of the proposals are in and we start piecing them together, we just like to make sure that if we accept this, if we accept this, if we accept this, and put them all together, does it begin to look like what we thought we were going to do from the beginning? If it doesn't, we may need to rethink how we approach it all. If it does, there's an added level of confidence that this is a sensible plan.
All right, our next
I
question
also
is.
encourage. Oh,
Go
Glenn,
ahead.
I was just going to say, I encourage all the publishers that have joined us to make sure that you're registered with a source that agencies will refer to when looking at media outlets. It's very important, and there are times where I will catch publishers that are not listed or registered, and it just makes the digging have to go much further.
Right. And SRDS was sold by Kantar back on March 30th, I think it was, or early April, to adwanted.com. And that is now a source where all the SRDS listings have been populated in adwanted.com, and they have a direct feed from us for all the BPA statements. So when someone goes in to either shop a horizontal or a vertical, they will see all the media, both audited and unaudited, and then the buyer can then begin to shop. But the publisher has to go in and also activate the account. So those of you on the publishing side listening today, I would encourage you to just take a look at that at adwanted.com, because that now does incorporate SRDS, and it is a tool, as Kevin said, where you can go and find the information, or they can find the information they need. So then continuing on, Kevin, on evaluation. So how do you evaluate a publication's circulation integrity, its vitality, and its relevance to a particular target segment? And this sort of suggests in the question that it's a print product, but you can also take it in your answer, if you would, from print and web.
Yeah, we look at how many subscribers are qualified within the year. Typically, we set a benchmark at 80%. And what percent of subscribers are directly requesting the publication? Publications will win with an audit that illustrates the most detailed breakout of job titles so we can match against the target criteria. Lumping something together like OEM, but not giving us production, operations, management, or engineering can become a problem. Also, if we don't come across an audit, we may look at, as I mentioned before, ad reader studies. Plus, we'll look at the depth of content on a site, look at quality of editorial. So we have to evaluate all these factors before we make an investment.
And team, anything to add? Okay. If we come on to, that was me. We come on to our fourth question for Eileen. When a media outlet supplies its own internally verified, quote unquote, data as evidence of its circulation, what do you do to check the accuracy of a self-declared data?
Well, there's the opportunity also has to correlate with the timing. So when a lot of our clients, our placement reflects their needs and times for signups, times for activities that they're looking for. So one of the things we might look at is a year-over-year based information. How long have they been in the market? Why aren't they audited by a third party yet? What's been going on? We'll take a look at any information they have to verify patterns that we can see as far as delivery of people. Usually, if they're not audited or they're not providing us with a third-party audit of some kind, they have to guarantee us certain impressions or certain circulation for them to get on the buy. And so, if I can't count on, I'm not buying ads. I'm buying the people that I reach. So if they can't guarantee me those people, those eyes and ears, or those impressions, or sometimes we even get guaranteed click-throughs for a set rate, I'd rather go with impressions and set some sort of a idea of where we want to go with the click-through rate. But if they can't guarantee me, then they're probably not going to be on there. So that's what we do.
Mhm. And Terrance, anything to add?
I would say exactly that. If it's only internally verified, what can you guarantee me? I need something that I can feel confident in.
Right. All right. Our fifth question I'm going to come back to, because we thought that we would be covering this in some of the other questions about, what data sets are important to you. And we sort of did. Kevin referred to the title granularity in 3A and the request and age in 3B. So we thought we would be picking up on this as we went through. But Kevin, how much weight do you give an audited title over a non-audited title? If you had do you have a point system that you rate this, or do they go in a good pile, or and does it matter?
Well, yeah, definitely flag audited versus non-audited, and those are things that we do share with the client. So when I'm breaking down circulation or breaking down online audiences, I'm going to make that as a mark on the analysis. But it also depends on the industry and how many in that industry are audited versus non-audited. There may be an importance on association or society media that I find is often not audited. Or we may be going very niche and deep in, I'm going to just use healthcare as an example, going very deep in that industry to a field of medicine where the only publication available is not audited. But without a doubt, audited media always will be considered first unless special circumstances are present. We've seen in the IT and the energy industry a sudden influx of new sites trying to get a piece of the action. And it's a challenge because they may get to the millennials, or they're starting to create buzz, and they're on the cutting edge on the way they deliver information. But in that case, we put pressure or make sure competing publications or sites that have been around for decades are keeping up to maintain their strong legacy. Another thing to keep in mind is that clients have always welcomed and embraced an agency's visual or oral presentation of a publisher's audience using audited information as the source.
Right. And so for the team, Kevin, you used the word pressure. I personally hear from too many publishers that first they say, well, not so much buying is done by agencies anymore. Maybe they use the 20-80 rule, 20% agencies, 80% direct. But then they go on to say, and even the 20% that are agencies, the demand doesn't seem to be there what it was, say, 10 years ago. So when you use the word pressure, what can an agency do to the media seller to say to them, look, I may or may not put you on the plan, but you'd really stand in better stead if you had independent third-party verification? Does that come up? Do you feel powerless or empowered to do something like that?
Well, for me, I always, if I really feel like a publisher could be a very good contender based on some of the things I mentioned before, I will have that conversation with them and really try to, maybe pressure is a strong word, but it's trying to influence them and suggest that they get audited. Because what happens when I start asking questions about their audience and how they break down their audience by job titles or industries. And as I mentioned, going back to the media brief and the conversations we're having with clients and looking how clients are interacting with their content and website, we're looking at those job titles and those industries. So that has to kind of match the media that we're going to recommend. And so when I ask that question, I usually get, let me check with a different department and let me get back to you. So that delays our planning, timeline and our process. And it's, a planner really plans in real time. And to ask those simple, those basic questions and realize that somebody on the other line doesn't really understand the full breakout, and we have to wait for that information, it's a problem. Because if they're audited, then that information is, on a and they could pull up their audit statement and see. So it becomes a resource and a helpful tool for the publisher or the sales team at the publication or website, just as much as it's a helpful tool for agencies to describe and visualize their investment. The client's investment.
Gotcha. Eileen?
Well, I find that when I talk to, like, for example, when we're talking to publishers about ways to go into partnership, because usually it's not just buying an ad, it's looking at their editorial. Is it appropriate for what we're going to do? Do they believe in what my client has to say? One of my clients is in insurance and workplace safety, and it's really important that when I go into publications that are towards CEOs or business managers or risk managers, that they believe, these publications also believe, that workplace safety is an important issue, and that they can't act as if it's something you do to keep, whatever. But you get one death on the workplace, you can't get on any more bids. That's it. Your business is pretty much done. And in Texas, you don't have to have workers' compensation. You don't. So when I talk, you're self-insured, which makes it even more dangerous. But when I talk to publishers about going into a partnership for the year, I ask things about how important is this? And then I ask them, what else are you doing other than publishing and doing an e-magazine because you will, or sending out e-newsletters, which they will, or what else are you doing to create a community, a resource for people to use your publication to find solutions to their problems? What are you giving them? So I try to, this year, for sure, we worked with them to create other opportunities, other ways for them to tell their story. And we fund those opportunities from webinars, etc. So we're helping them understand it can't be a printed piece only. It can't be this. If you're going to do this, let's take everything that was going to be like the trade show in Amarillo. Let's take that and let's create something online. So we'll still be there supporting you, but now I need some verification that this actually happened. And that's where I need auditing more than ever. It's when it becomes something like that we change things up, and I still need to know I got either what I had paid for as far as impressions or people, or better, that it's a great investment for my client and we superseded that. We got more people, more impressions than we ever thought we were going to do with our initial plan. So with COVID, we've been changing things up a lot. And my job is to make sure that we're always going to get more. So with an unaudited publication, what can they do? But with an audited publication, they can give me what I need faster and more accurately.
Cool. Terrance?
I'll agree with what both Eileen and Kevin said. It gets to a speed factor that's really important.
All right. So we're going to just pick up the pace on some of this, folks. I may not go directly to all panelists so we can pick up on some of our time. But Kevin, in terms of getting granular, some of the materials that we've put out talk about how an audit statement can provide valuable insight in terms of several media planning metrics. But I'm told most buyers do not look at the data available. Some simply want to know whether or not the media is audited and don't actually look at the report. So what's your reaction to that concept of, I don't really need to look at the report as long as I know you're audited?
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked to hear that, because as I mentioned before, I mean, doing this for almost 30 years and focusing more on B2B, I mean, I could look back with all the different accounts, and every time our team has presented audited information in such a, as I mentioned before, in such a visual way, it's amazing how much the client embraces that, because it's information they also share with so many other decision makers within their department. You know, at MediaCom, we put a lot of emphasis on looking at the audit and turning the page and looking at that breakout and so forth. And I like to see audits that are not just talking about the the print, but also their newsletter, how many, subscribers they have to that, and how many unique visitors they are having on their website. So if you're a publisher with a title that has many different touch points, all those touch points should be part of that audit. But I'm very surprised to hear that, agencies don't look at the report. And at MediaCom, we have a print department, we have a digital planning team, and I know for sure when it comes to print, the print department understands the BPA, through and through. And as I mentioned, it's not, as I've been talking to everybody, I've been focusing a lot on audience, but, content is very, very important. And we'll look at the website and we'll look at how the framework of the website and the portals and the type of information that's being delivered, and putting everything into different buckets of content so we can see information that we may want to be in front of, and to see how far that publisher or that website is going, how deep do they go into the field on reporting and on best practices, so. All
right.
I hope that answers the question.
Yep. And Terrance.
Yeah, I would almost say that reminds me of a question I will ask on occasion. You're recommending we advertise with this website. Have you visited the website? It's sort of there's this idea, well, simply because it's audited, well, let's make sure we know what was audited. And then when you read the audit statement alongside the media kit, that can even right there generate additional questions. Kevin was talking earlier about all the cross-tabbing of, you've got OEM, yeah, but what industries and then what titles. And you can see some stuff in the audit statement that may spark additional questions that could be to the favor of any given publisher that you're talking to. So it allows you to understand a little bit more what you know and what you don't know. So I think reading the audit statement is incredibly important.
Right. Eileen, unaudited media choices, are they a cheaper buy? It's been said that media owners that are committed to being audited are by necessity dedicated to maintaining high standards and accurate records in order to deliver on their promises. And this requires a significant ongoing investment on their part. But non-audited media brands have no such oversight and may or may not be making the necessary investments to deliver the quantity and the quality of the audience that you're paying for. And I personally believe that ads in audited media as a result are more valuable to advertisers, and that they know what they're buying and the media owner can prove the audience being delivered. But we're hearing that generally unaudited media charge a lower price point, it's a cheaper buy, and that is more enticing to the client and the agency. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that people that buy based on a cost per ad aren't really buying. I mean, we don't, like I said, we don't buy ads. We're buying the impressions or the people that the ads reach. And so we look at the what we're buying on a cost per thousand basis. Now, of course, some publishers take their circulation times readers per copy and they come up with readership. We don't really buy off readership because that can fluctuate, right? Depending on who's on the cover. Princess Di, for sure, it's going to have a huge readership. Yeah, Elvis, for sure. But what we look at is on a regular basis, looking at again, timing, if there's certain months, if there's a certain geography that we're interested in that they're servicing, we'll look at their penetration of that. And we look at overall how they perform across the year. We look at it in cost per thousand, on their circulation, on subscribers, because that's the core of who they have to deliver to us. The subscribers are their people, it's their community, right? Not someone they're trying to bring in, or yeah, get a free phone and you can get this. These are the people that make up their core audience. So we look at their subscribers and we look at all of the information we can get on that. Are those people the same? Is it a dovetail joint with what we're looking for? Does it emulate the kind of people we want to talk to? So if it's audited, then we have that kind of information so we can prove it's a good investment. And we can look at a cost per thousand and we can tell. If it's a non-audited publication, and a lot of times they don't know who their subscribers are. They don't know how many subscribers they have. They don't know what zip codes or whatever. Usually non-audited means it might be free, or it might be to a specific industry or something like that. And my job is to push them to find out who the hell is looking at their stuff. Who are your people? If you want my money, I need to figure out a cost per thousand. Now that cost per thousand can be played out against sponsoring white papers, to events, to online presence, to banners, to all kinds of webinars, and the print ad too. But I have to bring in or below that cost per thousand that I'm looking for when the end of the day comes. And every month we're looking at an audit. Every month we're looking at a reconciliation to make sure we're on track for meeting what we need to get for our investment. So if it's audited, I'm going to have access to that. If it's unaudited and they come to me and they say, well, you're going to pay $4,000 for that ad, you can have this ad, a full page in my publication, for only $100. And of course, that might seem cheap, but I'm only going to reach like maybe 10 people, you know, around their dining room table. We had a bad situation in the 80s with Dell when we were working on that for a second, where there was a new tech publication in town. And he said he had 10,000 circulation of 10,000, and it was a free publication in Austin, of course. And I said, well, let's give it a try. And I met his wife at a putt-putt golf party for our kids, and she told me, oh, my husband's such a liar. I said, don't say that, Debbie, that's not nice. And she said, yeah, he's saying to everybody he's doing 10,000 of these things. He's only printing up like 1,200. And I had to leave the party because I was shaking so hard. And nevertheless, we figured out how to make it okay. But that kind of thing, once it happens to you, where you trusted someone that's not audited and they just tell you a falsehood, no matter if they gave it to you, you still might not want to be in it, because it could be something that your client doesn't want to be associated with.
Right. All right. Now,
You know, that I would.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say I've come across non-audited sites or publications that are actually more expensive because they're so exclusive to a very, very, very niche audience that kind of use that in the pricing. So it's not always the case that they're cheaper to buy.
Right.
No, and also, excuse me, but also sometimes we apply a qualitative rating point or qualitative for publications like that. One is Inside Texas Government, that's in, you know, that is important. It has a higher cost per point. I mean, a cost per thousand than we normally would want to pay. But as we all know, the more specific we are, and who we're trying to talk to, redheaded doctors, left-handed, redheaded doctors, our cost per thousand is going to be more, right? If it's a general audience, our cost per thousand can be less. But we try to assign a qualitative ascertainment to that cost per thousand. So again, we define it and we keep it on that cost per thousand throughout our relationship and our placement.
Yeah, and that, just this sidebar, that's actually what we're finding in our programmatic co-op, that as publishers get their sites into the tool and the algorithms begin to recognize, as you say, the red-headed healthcare professional who's left-handed, that drives a higher CPM, because the algorithm has now figured out that is, you know, the right target audience. So I just like to comment, Glenn, I don't know if you did, but for those of you who are listening in today, we do have the chat and the Q&A. We are going to get to Q&A as we get a little bit further along. So if you have questions, you know, please come in and chat. But Terrance, on the digital properties at Allison Partners, what information do you require for your purchase decision?
You know, in so many cases these days, we're ultimately trying to drive to a lead. So I'll be looking in almost all cases, what can you guarantee? You know, if it's a digital ad, okay, is there serving going on that can guarantee more than just this appeared, this was visible placement? What can you guarantee? And then from there, I'll say, okay, so how do we then prove that you've met your guarantee? That's where oftentimes it then flips back to what's being audited. Perfect example would be an e-newsletter. All right, are you able to tell me your typical open rate? Are you going to be able to tell me the exact open rate of the issue in which I advertised? If that open rate was lower, no fault of mine, is there a way we can make it all work out? What are you guaranteeing me? And that's really what I'm going to push on. And we can work lots of things from there, but it starts with that. What can you guarantee me, and what can you then prove you've delivered? That's why leads can be so valuable. I can look at the record.
Right. Okay. Our next question for Eileen: as the shift to digital expands, do you see an audit to verify data to be a needed tool for your purchase decision, and/or what information do you need?
Well, part of the way that we work with our clients is that the reconciliation on the back end of every month is also a place for us to gain additional money. If we find mistakes or if things don't happen correctly, then we make more money by finding mistakes. So on the digital, when I was working, I forget, I mean, my company was the first to do business as a .com in the state of Texas. So we've been doing digital for a long time. In my state charter, it says Ideality, and it's spelled out D-O-T. It's com, that's the state of Texas. So what we find is that with digital, we have to work toward accountability. So with digital, it's all proof in the performance, or POP. And what I find is a lot of people, when they buy digital, they get the bills or the invoices and they just go, all right, there we go, and they pay it. But we take that apart and making sure that our share of voice was there, that our position was there, that they delivered all the impressions, that, you know, because you don't, I mean, so many mistakes are made where the wrong ad might run, etc. And they have to, all of the digital people, the reports to us have to be incredibly thorough so that we can actually pay them. Because if they are not delivering exactly as our contract, which is a complicated entity now, contracts used to be pretty much easy. Now contracts are incredibly complicated, exactly stating where we're running, position, how they have to prove that they ran it. And if they can't prove that to us, we do not pay. So right. Digital has to have that kind of performance built in so that they can prove to us and not just say, oh, well, we don't have that. Because if they don't have that, then we can't pay them. We have to have a really legitimate way of proving that they delivered what we purchased. And so that's,
we've been asked by one advertiser to come up with a system where we would audit and report on precisely that, how the terms and conditions of the contract were actually fulfilled, and if in fact all the promises were met. Terrance, you had something to add?
Yeah, Eileen, I was just going to say that's a great point. I should have made it. When I talk about a guarantee, oh yeah, it's got to be in the contract, what you're going to deliver and how you're going to prove it.
Right. All right, question 11. Now, Terrance, this is a table you would, unless you're in the dental field, you wouldn't know of this, but the recency of engagement table has been reported by 2 dental publications in the products and shopping category for probably the last 5 or 6 years. And it shows requests broken out by how recently they engaged. And we've taken it a step further now, in that we've normalized this for our membership effective 2021, only now showing 2 years instead of 3. And the concept here is someone who either was a requested record or came from a business directory or something like that. And as that ages, can you, as the publisher, tell us how recently they engaged with any of the channels of your platform? So the concept here was, as consent and opt-ins age, well, fine, but we want to be able to let the publisher put their best foot forward to say that while that opt-in has aged, our audience is still highly actively engaged, and they're looking at either newsletters or webinars or downloads of something. And so we've designed this table now. It's optional, right? But in 2021, for those who are not reporting age of their source, we do want them to show this table for stuff that's over 2 years old. But I know you wouldn't have touched this if you're not currently buying into those 2 dental books. So just talk generally in terms of engagement. How is that information helpful to you as a buyer?
There are 2 reasons why it's important. One is if I'm on behalf of a B2B client pursuing new leads, recency of when that lead entered my client's system matters so much. The more recent a lead, the more likely it is to close and turn into a sale. So just that general way of thinking matters. And then this also begins to go back to sort of you may not be able to tell me exactly what's going to happen in the future, but let me understand a little bit more about what's happened in the past. If your e-newsletter has a 25% open rate, am I going to get all of your subscribers if I do a 4x insertion? Is the base that's opening it changing it? Or am I going to reach 1/4 of your subscribers 4 times? Help me understand that. And I can probably deal with whatever the answer is. Just help me understand it so I can use something, again, that I can bank on, something around like a guarantee, and I can slot that into a certain role. And then if I need some other things and that publisher can't provide it, that's okay. I can find somebody else to fill another role. Help me understand how well you can fill a very specific role, and engagement, I think, is a key to showing that information.
Right. And for those of you who are viewing today, we're at 12 noon, and we are going to run over. We do have a couple, another 3 or 4 questions, and then we've got to go into Q&A. So please bear with us, but if you have to bail out, I certainly understand that. But you can always come back and view the archive session, as we'll post it up both on our website and Coping in Corona with Media and LinkedIn. Training. This really comes up a lot, I have to say, Eileen, when I'm asked by publishers, what is BPA doing to help in the media buying side, mostly agencies, but certainly even direct? How do you, what do you think agencies should do in terms of training media planners?
Having been an instructor for the Media Buying Academy, which is out of Maryland area up there, for 15 years, I can tell you that that's a really great resource for getting the nomenclature right. Because what happens is that people that work for an agency, they don't necessarily all speak the same language. So when you hire people in, you're talking about this, they're using a different word for it. They don't know how important that is. It's good to create a culture that is shared across the media department, so everyone knows what you're talking about when you talk about it. Creating that nomenclature is difficult if you don't have someone that's all about teaching on staff. So the best way to do it is to have someone that comes in and teaches the whole course of whatever it is to the staff, or you hire someone that has that job to indoctrinate your new workers, to create learning situations. And there's so many thousands of webinars for media buyers and planners right now that are out there that you can create a culture in your agency or in your media buying service where everyone's watching them, that you talk about it and you create that culture, or you bring in an outside source. So to me, if you do not create that culture where everybody knows what you're talking about inside the agency, then it's not going to be a smooth activity. It's going to have a lot of jumps and jars. So to me, it's the responsibility of the person that manages, the media director, the VP of media, to set that culture in place, whether that's sending people off to schools, and there are quite a few schools. Even if you bring them in, we've hired people over the years from the best advertising schools and media schools in the United States to come and work for us. And we still have to train them because they don't know our way of talking about it, our nomenclature, our speech. So that, to me, that there's lots of opportunities, but it has to be, you have to set up a system for it and not assume someone knows how to buy media because they like to talk on the phone or they like to email. That's not the same thing. People that like other people and want to talk don't know how to buy media necessarily. It's like someone saying, well, I watch commercials, so I know how to make one. You don't know how to buy media unless you know the steps and processes. So it's a culture that someone has to take responsibility for. And if a publisher's working with a media buyer, which is at the lower end of the process, there's buying and planning and directing and VPing. If you're working with a media buyer, they might have just been told what to do, right? They don't even have to think about it. They might just be using software to do it, like ding, 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 ding. They don't know why. You might want to be talking to someone that might be telling you the real why of why and what of what. So does that answer it?
Yep.
Okay.
And then for the group, and what would you like to see in BPA reports that you're not seeing now? Terrance?
Oh gosh. I don't know that it's so much I want to see in a general BPA report. I'd simply like to see more publishers digging in and verifying digital data. Open rates, potentially click-through rates, that type of stuff. You know, as we mentioned earlier, their audit report is there. There's a media kit. So if these two documents are open, help them be a whole lot more coordinated. That's what I'd like to see. Help me understand, if I advertise here, what should my expectations be? And again, I can build around those expectations to fit any specific publisher into a broader plan.
All right. Eileen or Kevin, anything to add to that?
Well, I think I said earlier that I'd really like to see something that we can use on a post-buy or an analysis of what actually was delivered. If BPA had that capability, that would be great. To spit out those reports would be really nice.
Okay. Yep.
And I would just encourage associations and societies, if you are audited, to try to break out, you know, members as if possible. Usually we just say, we see in those BPAs just a member of this association, but there's no further breakout. And today we're looking at things such as viewability and fraud. So it's be interesting to see how those might get, you know, success, viewability, success, and banners being able to render quickly, maybe at a success rate. You start showing that on a BPA. But I've been very, very happy with most BPA statements that I come across. And I give credit to those publishers that are working hard to break down the information as best as possible, and those that are providing the digital data that is really needed.
All right, in the interest of time, I'm going to fast forward here and combine these next two. 15, it's about how does a publisher get your attention and elevate your awareness of their brand and their capabilities? And it's tied to this next one. Considering the modes of communication by percent, what's the interaction with publisher representatives? How much do you do face-to-face, by email? In other words, how much of your time are you willing to devote to them? And how do they get in front of you, which is really 15. How does a publisher get your attention? And in those 4 channels, speak to that. If we could start with Eileen.
Well, for us, one of the things that we like to see is that publishers are actually using advertising to promote their publication. So we like to see not necessarily a nice kit, media kit that they send to us, but we want to know, how are you reaching out to your people? How are you growing your audience? That sort of thing. So if you can share, that would be great. Now, the best way to get in touch with me right now is by email. I might get 1,000 emails a day, but I actually am going through them and looking at them. I don't just go no. And usually I just say thank you, or we'll let you know, or something like that as an answer. But a face-to-face is really hard. We could try a Zoomy thing, but that's hard. So I think probably by email.
As the first step to maybe then set something up. Terrance, what do you think?
I would certainly agree by email. And the truth is, if you reach me, I probably won't respond if I don't have a specific need. I think I agree with Eileen. I will usually at least take a look at it, but then that email will remain. So at some point, if I have that need, I'm going to search in my inbox and I'm going to find you again, and then we're finally going to reconnect, or we're going to connect for the first time. I would also say, I don't know that I'm different than the average bear. When something new comes in and I'm working on a very specific B2B vertical, I am probably going to Google to try and find the publication that might match the niche I'm looking for. Don't be afraid to work on optimizing to make sure your publication comes up at the top, or potentially even advertising against some things that I might be searching for. And any way you can be there in front of me when I need you, I'm not going to ding you for that. I'm going to appreciate it.
And Kevin?
Well, I'm going to say, if you have something on your website that says advertising or about us, when I click on it, it shouldn't have a form fill. It should have a media kit that's digitized. All the media kit information should be readily available online, and that's going to really grab my attention, and it's going to put me to work, because I'm going to have all the information I need right there. And then from there, the next step will be our RFP process and so forth.
Right.
I agree, Kevin. I'll simply add, if I have to fill out a form and then wait for the media kit to be emailed to me, wow, that's even worse. And sometimes it may take a couple of days to get the media kit. Chances are the media planning process has continued without that publisher.
Yeah, we've heard that feedback. So we're in the stages now of doing a new development on our website, so that in addition to the PDF of the BPA reports, the publisher can also have the media kit, and it'll actually be the kit, not a link. So it'll be there, but to help the publishers, it's tied into our email alert system, or it will be. Like now, if you download a PDF or open a PDF of a BPA report, an email alert is triggered to tell the publisher that someone's looking at their report at that moment. The same thing will happen with a media kit, so that the buyers won't have to come in and register each time they want to look at any one media kit. It's done one time to get into the reports library. And then as you come and look at either BPA reports or media kits, the media buyer, the media seller, whoever on their end they want to receive the alert, it'll automatically be triggered, so they'll know that. That did come out of our March round of our meetings with our media buying community. And then last, in face-to-face sessions, now maybe there aren't many of those anymore, certainly not in the pandemic, but pre-pandemic, how much time are you able to actually give to a salesperson, or is it that you're not doing these anymore? Kevin?
I'm not sure what the question is. You're asking if they're presenting their BPA data, or do we have to request a copy?
Well,
I apologize, I'm not.
Yeah, do you take face-to-face sessions with salespeople pre-pandemic?
And I see.
Yeah.
Most of the conversation, I mean, if somebody is local or they're in town, my door is always open, and we try to have those face-to-face communications whenever possible. I would say majority of the time, we do have discussions by the phone. Really, when it gets time to customize very unique ideas that I've talked about, before. Again, it's not just slapping a banner on the website. It's creating something very unique, something that is going to help the client build a partnership with the customer, and that takes either ongoing conversations by the phone. So we're creating media, inventing media, or it's face to face.
Right. And Terrance, do you still have face to face?
Not in the past few months. And I believe the pandemic has shown that we can, I'm always happy for the human interaction, but we can potentially be a little more effective with online presentation tools. So it would give me maybe a better chance for somebody to truly present BPA data. If it's somebody in person, chances are they're more likely handing me a BPA report. I think online tools might allow them to more effectively blend BPA data into their general sales presentation.
Right. Mr. Schutz is telling me. All right. So then if we can move on to 18, How does BPA reach out to you and your peers?
Things like this.
Things like this. Let me just get rid of it so it's not there. Okay. Because that's a challenge that we're faced with when we're asked to help publishers convey the value of what they do in terms of providing an audited audience. And so that we do have a connection with Media Radar. We've used this last year to see who is buying in the B2B space and who the actual decision maker is. And we reach out to that person to try and make that connection. But it continues to be a challenge. Glenn, can we then move to our Q&A if you've got?
Yes, sir. It looks like we've got two questions that came in. The first, I think, was directed toward Kevin toward the beginning of the presentation. Says, can you speak more about the company or the tool that compares unique website audiences?
Yeah, it's called Similar Web, and I've been finding it very, very useful. And it does more than track unique users per month. It has some other interesting rankings, how that site ranks with other sites across the country.
Great, thank you. And the other question is from Catherine, and can be to all three of you, I suppose. Is new ad buying staff being trained to use the same approach that you use, or are they following their own approach?
I'll jump in and say a little bit of both. I certainly don't want to constrain people from techniques or comfortable investigations, yet there are certain things you kind of got to do, given the point of this call. For example, request and read the BPA audit.
And I would say that there are I work with lots of different buyers at different agencies. We do that. And I can tell you that in the younger buyers that are coming in, they have sort of a disdain for some reason for traditional media. And they believe that social media and online is the place where everyone spends all of their time. And why would they have to learn anything about traditional media or outside of the internet media? And so for us, we want to make sure that all of our buyers are aware of the place each media has. Every media sings and dances in a different way. And if you need a song and a dance like this, you'll use that media. So the idea to discount any media from being effective, it's effective in what it does. Maybe you don't need that kind of thing. So I make sure all of our media buyers know how to buy media across the board. And if they only want to do the social media or whatever, then we can consider letting them be kind of in that world. But I prefer generalists so that they actually know how to buy it all.
I also encourage, I encourage and appreciate planners and buyers to have a real appreciation for business to business, to understand that, it basically makes the world go around. You don't even get to a consumer product until a business has sold some kind of service or ingredient or product to another business, so that end product or consumer product gets made. So the more I try to educate and teach teams about industries and about industry media, the more I see this great balance between utilizing specific industry media and all, as I mentioned before, there's the full funnel approach, and then combining it with the unique, opportunities with account-based marketing and social media. But through that appreciation of business to business, we get multiple very interesting layers of media and successful touch points to make everything, work, from a lead to a sale.
Right. Well, I'd like to thank Kevin, Eileen, and Terrance for their time today to help us with this information. As we pointed out earlier, we will archive this, so it's available for subsequent viewing. To move forward, future virtual town halls, we've got 2 more scheduled, each Wednesday at 11 o'clock. Next week, a big one on data leakage in the bid stream and the demise of third-party cookies. We know that Google has said in about 18 months' time, they're going to do away with third-party cookies. And there's a great article, it's now a year old, believe it or not, but the good, the bid, and the ugly. And so we'll be talking with data companies and Bombora and ourselves next Wednesday at 11. So anyone who's involved in anything having to do with digital advertising, you should attend this to have a better understanding of what could possibly actually happen with data as it goes out through the bid stream in terms of buying online advertising. June 17th at 11. And then the week after that, we'll have vendors from the digital magazine space come in and tell us in this slightly ending pandemic crisis, as more and more publishers are moving from print copies to digital, we'll have a discussion about the capabilities and the reporting dashboards, very much what Eileen, Terrance, and Kevin have been saying today about what they would like to see in terms of valuable metrics on digital products. In this case, digital magazines, but it also would apply to e-newsletters. So we've got invites out with Nextbook and Blue Toad. Isu has confirmed, and Zinio. If I don't have confirmations from all of them, we'll seek out some other players. But we are looking to have a brief conversation then on June 24th. So again, if you're not in, join us in Coping with Corona in Media. So you'll have access to the content, not just these archived webinars, but also links to all of the relevant media that we have been posting. Well, thank you very much. I'm sorry we ran a little bit long today. It's now 12:20, but we look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday at 11 o'clock. And again, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Eileen. And thank you, Terrance. Have a good day and
Thank you.
Safe health. Yep. Good health for all. Thank you.